I'm not a PGA Tour player. I'm not a full-time YouTuber. At least not yet. My name is AJ Porter, and I'm a 28-year-old marketing professional trying to make the jump to compete, grow a brand, and see just how far I can take this game. And I'm documenting every part of that journey. The training, the tournaments, the setbacks, everything that goes on behind the scenes. Are you joining the journey? All right, Gareth, welcome back to the show, man. It's been good. Things obviously a little bit different. It was good to spend some time with you over in England. I just wanted to welcome you and say thanks for joining.
Hey AJ, it's a pleasure to be back on, and it was great fun actually to meet you in person in Woburn and getting the opportunity to watch you playing golf and see what's going on and really get an idea of where you're at as this journey is beginning, I guess.
So for those of you who maybe don't know, I'm AJ Porter. I'm a 28-year-old marketing professional. Gareth McShea works with the Aimpoint Performance team, and we're starting a journey this year. If you missed the first couple episodes the goal is to qualify either for match play in either USM or US Mid-Am this year, and then hopefully next year achieve some level of Korn Ferry Tour status or beyond. So ultimately, this is going to be a lot of those conversations. We're going to be talking mental. We're going to be talking short game. We're going to be talking sort of all those different elements. So kind of just to kick us off, man, let's talk a little bit about that day at Woburn. I feel like I learned so much from both you and Jamie. But let's kind of just talk a little bit about what your impressions were of that day, and we'll kind of get into mine after that.
Hey, so I love looking at performance kind of as a suite of pieces that come together over the course of a round, right? And it's problem solving and the capacity to have a solution to whatever problem you're facing in any given moment that gives you a chance to keep the round going or to enhance those chances. I really enjoyed watching you hit golf shots. You hit the ball beautifully. You're obviously an elite golfer. And I think a lot of our conversations weren't necessarily around anything there that's lacking. It was more perhaps some short game stuff and I would say at times, being honest, the conversations you were having with yourself within the round as it was unfolding. So I think for coaches and for people listening, your coach needs to see you on the golf course at some point in time, right? Because we see behaviors on ranges, we see behaviors on practice tees that do not replicate how that player plays golf in the arena that is a golf course. And it is so empowering for us guys as coaches, and it's so valuable to you as a player to allow us to enter that world that you're living in and see how we can help you and watch for the performance gaps and the areas of opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think that was definitely one of the biggest things that I took away from that day. Even some of the times when I'd be discussing shots, you'd just come over and look at me and go, dude, you're just thinking way too much. Like, just see the window and hit the shot. Like, what are you doing? And that was sort of one of the funniest pieces of the day. And one of the things that was probably the most shocking to me, there's a few shots throughout the day, but there's one shot in particular that really still sticks out in my mind, and you'll probably remember it. It was par 3. I'd flared it off over to the right, and I was on sort of a sandy, compacted, firm area. And I'm sitting there looking at this thing going, right, I'm trying to knock it to like 25 feet. Don't make double is my thought. And you're like, just stand in there, put your wrist down, cut across it, and you're going to hit it to like 5 feet. Like, it's not a big deal. And I was like, no, like I really got to think whatever. And he goes, do you think that the guys that you're playing against are thinking don't make double? And that was just one of those moments where it's like, yeah, my mindset really has to change because that's clearly not the right mindset. And I mean, nonetheless, then I hit the shot exactly how you tell me to, and I hit it, I think, like a foot. So it was just like, all right, I've got the physical skill to do it. It's the mindset that almost kind of can hold you back. I know that's been a big part of this show, but like I think it continues as I get better as a player and as a performance, it continues to grow, and I see all the areas maybe for improvement, as you would say.
Yeah, like a huge part of that to me, and that's why, when we were engaging around the shot, I asked you first of all for your perspective of what's going on. I was kind of like, man, I just got to get this thing in the green and not make double and all that. And that tells me the story you're telling yourself in that moment is don't make double. And I would suggest that the players that we've seen on TV get up and down from crazy places in extreme pressure situations, they're probably asking themselves a different question, which is, how do I get this thing up and down? Discussion about it, and there was a little bit of suggestion on my behalf, but you executed that shot with 10 out of 10 success. You couldn't have hit a better golf shot, and I don't think anybody could in those circumstances. It was a challenging golf shot, but perhaps more challenging is the mindset and the stories we're telling ourselves as we arrive to the golf ball. And we do need to sometimes just take stock and go, wait, if I had to make a 3 here for whatever reason, is it possible? And the answer will be yes in that situation. It won't be in every situation. And you went ahead and you hit this shot, and I'm like, dude, this is not necessarily lacking in physical skills.
Yeah. There was another one. There was another one that day as well. I think it was on hole number 9. It was sort of off of wet, as the English would call it, boggy turf, bit of a downslope, and it was the same sort of shot where you're like, right, you just gotta, put your wrist down and cut across it. And it was the same thing where I'm like looking at this thing like, there's no way I get this thing up and down, and I hit it to 4 feet. And so the stories, I guess, that I'm telling myself definitely do need to change. I think they certainly have post Woburn in a lot of ways. I think that day was really confidence building for me, just to be like, all right, like I do have game. But I think there's also still a long ways to go in terms of the stories that I'm telling myself. Like even before we're hopping on here, I was like, oh, this is the place where I suck. And you're like, no, this is an area for improvement. Like it's these little paradigm shifts that I still need to get better at.
Yeah, and it's also the awareness to catch yourself as the stories start to play out in your mind, because a lot of these things, if they've happened often enough, the story is very easy to tell. The brain's quite a lazy organ in terms of it's very energy hungry, and therefore it looks for patterns, and when it sees patterns, the patterns aren't necessarily what's best for the person it happens to be working with, which is you. The patterns are what's been repeated the most. So it doesn't differentiate between what's right and wrong. It differentiates between that which is repeated and that which is not. And so the stories tend to run on autopilot a lot of the time. And this is true for anybody listening in. And part of our job as a golfer, part of our job as a human is to start to find those stories that aren't empowering us in the manner in which we desire, and start to rescript them. And that's really important. So when you said that at the start before we hit the record button, the reason I intervene there is not to be, well, look at this is the area of opportunity. It's more so to catch the story for you and let you see that story is playing, and then go, hey, dude, if you become aware of this again, and you need to become aware of it to change it, then do something different.
Yeah. So is that really then process moving forward when it comes to those things of like, hey, let's be objective and let's notice when those stories are creeping in, and then just kind of cut it out, and then eventually over time the thought is that those will sort of not happen automatically, because there is an element of it where it won't, but like will happen automatically more frequently. Is that sort of the premise?
Right. And when you say that, so we're saying, okay, over time we're going to do this. The brain will say, well, this pattern is stronger, it's easier to replay. So we have what's called we have 2 pieces here that need to be created. We have long-term depression, which is you stop firing the old signal. You catch yourself early into the old pattern, and you go, nope, that's not happening this time around. Then you have long-term potentiation, where you change it up and you go, the story I want to tell myself is this, right? And the stories can't be crazy stuff, AJ, but we know you have the capacity to hit the golf shots that are required in the situations that you find yourself. So it's the ability to, awareness is key, because most people find the problem when it's way too far downstream. So in other words, they're looking at symptoms. They hit the ground before the golf ball. Oh, well, this is a technical issue, but maybe that happened as they're approaching the golf ball, and they start telling themselves, I can never get it up and down from there. Now, I'm not saying there's not technical issues, but the story will feed into the technical issues, and vice versa. So we want to catch these things as early as we can. We're looking for sources, not symptoms. And then we're going to cease the replay as best can. It'll still pop up now and again, but we cease the replay of the automated story, and we start to increase the replay of the new, more desirable story. And over time, if you like, the seesaw swings in the direction that we desire.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we touched on technical there. We did do a bit of technical work at the lovely Woburn putting chipping area. That place is still a dream, man.
Yes,
My
the
buddy
tap
Anthony
stock's
was,
amazing, isn't it?
oh my gosh, man, he was so happy. So my buddy Anthony, who was over there when we first kind of came into the day, he was like, "Man, I don't care what we do. I'll hold a camera. I'll do anything. I just want to chip." He's like, "I don't even care if I play. I just want to chip on that Woburn practice facility." So that was really cool to be able to spend some time with you there. Let's talk a little bit about what we're working on technically with the chipping, because we did a lot of work in technical and the pitching and chipping. I can relay it, or if you want to kind of talk about what it is we're working on.
I would be intrigued to hear your version, and then I can because I can come in behind and kind of explain the thinking behind, or the reasoning, the concepts behind what we were doing.
Yeah, so it was a few different things, right? So for one, it was standing a little bit taller, right? That was kind of first and foremost, and getting the wrists into a little bit more, what is that, ulnar or whatever?
Ulnar, yeah.
Yeah, whatever, toe down. I call it toe down, to get up, a little bit more on top of it. The next thing that we're sort of working on is acceleration pattern, right? So I would get very very hitty with it. We're sort of trying to get it to where it's not falling on the ball, but like that's the feeling of falling on the ball, still while applying pressure on the right side of the shaft, on what feels like, if you're watching on video, where I'm feeling like I'm on top of the shaft. And then the last piece, really, for me, is getting rid of the loop. So I one of the great things about my golf swing is I naturally shallow it. Like, I just shallow it really nicely. But I think I have that pattern so ingrained that my brain just goes, oh, here, the club's here, so even if we're just taking a tiny little backswing, let's go ahead and shallow this thing. So some of what I've been doing in the time that I have is I'm doing pause drills where I'll sort of take it back, vertical enough. That was one of the other pieces that we talked about, is making sure it didn't get sucked in behind me, taking it back vertical, and making sure that it didn't kind of loop around. Those were the main sort of elements that stuck out to me. I know there's probably more, but for me right now, those are the main elements.
Right, and the brain is an amazing instrument or organism, because if we ask it to do something and we start to move in a manner in which it cannot deliver it, it will create a loop to try and help you. And that's the key statement here. It's trying to help you get perhaps the club back and the club head or the sweet spot back in front of your body as you're coming into impact. For you, as much as we can, we try to clean that up and set up, getting you. It's mainly the club taller. It's not even you that much taller. It's mainly the club taller at address, feeling like it's more resting on the toe. Putting pressure on the handle allows us to make sure the club head stays outside the hand, so we're more straight. If there was a wall at the toe of the golf club, the toe's just running up that wall in the backswing. It's never ripping inside. It's never going somewhere that we need to do a recovery move. And then, like, if we look at great players with their short games, there tends to be a constancy of speed. We don't suddenly see increase in acceleration. We don't suddenly see them backing off into massive deceleration. We do tend to see what looks to the human eye super smooth. And I know the data can be a little bit contrary to that in terms of what we really know is happening. But as a feel for anybody listening and for you, constancy of speed is a really nice thing to play around with.
Yeah, that's the most difficult one, because I think for me, I have a tendency to over accelerate and to let's make sure we get this thing there, and there's an element of feel to it. Like that day we hit some really nice shots with what felt like I was almost dropping the club because it was so slow.
Right. So like a drill I might prescribe there, AJ, is go and train with backswings that feel too long to you. Right. So we need to take some energy away on the way down, and basically that just means the club won't deliver at the same acceleration rate.
Yeah. What's your take on sort of pause drill and chipping, as well as I'm trying to eliminate this loop? What's your take on that?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying a few moments ago about long-term depression. Means we don't keep firing the signals that we have been firing, because otherwise we keep getting the patterns we have been getting. And therefore, if you can insert something like a pause, it can be really helpful to allow you to implement something that you want in your game going forward. And it's key to say, like, the misconception online is that change happens in an instant. Concepts can change in a moment. Physical capacity or the ability to execute takes time to generate, takes time to develop. Learning is a chemical, physical, and emotional occurrence. And so you've got to kind of give yourself, and I know you do, give yourself the opportunity to experiment and train this, understanding that it will show up, but it won't show up instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense, which also leads into the next segue of, the thing that we talked about is putting, speed control, and changing my routine. That has actually been the hardest thing from our trip together, actually, that's been for me to change. I'm still working on it, believe it or not. I know. So for those who haven't seen me play or haven't seen a pre-shot routine, I sort of will just kind of look at the hole and do 3 sort of quick strokes that don't really have a whole lot of meaning to them. And Gareth and Jamie were both like, dude, that's going to be terrible for your speed control. Like, your pre-shot routine is doing absolutely nothing for you. But I had done it so many times that it's almost sort of ingrained, like that pattern is ingrained. So now we're working to ingrain a new pattern that actually has purpose to it. And I've noticed my speed control has been better. Like, I am 3-putting less than I was before. Like, it's undoubtedly. But I've noticed sort of on the 6 and 8 footers, they feel a little bit more like, don't want to call them, not jabby, because they're not jabby, but like they're not as fluid yet, because I don't have that routine as dialed in yet. So that's been an interesting one as well. Just changing that.
It kind of goes back, AJ, to this idea that which is repeated gets stored.
Yeah.
Right. And therefore, a comment I get a lot when I'm coaching is, well, what I'm doing feels natural. Yes, it feels natural because you've done it so much. Your brain there's an element of automaticity here. You're not even thinking about it. You're just doing it, right? But have you stopped to actually ask the question, what value does this bring to what I'm doing? And many people, we do the same stuff because it's easy. We do the same stuff because there's minimal barriers to it. It's already stored. It's easy to repeat. But is there value here? If the value continue, if there's none, then you need to alter or upgrade depending on what's required. For you, like as an elite player, speed control between 7 and 20 feet will become a major part of development because you will need to convert more birdie putts.
Yes. So that's
just, we know that from the data, right? You can't hide from that. And if you have a situation where you have this kind of punchy stroke, let's call it, you're going to leave as many probably short as long at that range, and that's not going to get it done. You need to be getting the ball to the hole the majority of the time, probably 75-80% of the time, to be really competitive at the highest level.
Yeah. Do you want to talk real quickly that stat about college golfers versus like high-level college golfers versus PGA Tour players and that speed control? Because that one really surprised me. Like the biggest.
Yeah. So on the PGA Tour, 10 to 20 feet, I'll say to people, how many putts you think come up short? And you get a variety of answers, right? But normally it's going to be between 30 and 40% is what's said to me, and the answer's around 10% of putts, 10 to 20 feet on tour, PGA Tour, will come up short. So 90% on average will get to the hole and have a chance of going in. NCAA Division I athlete at the same range is about 50-50.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking, the difference.
Yeah, but it's also, I think, and I don't know this, well, we know some of the approaches that they're advised to take, but if you're being told at 15 feet and out, you should be just leaving as many short as long, well, then that's going to affect your concepts on how the game is played, and those concepts will be reflected in how you play the game. But I think it's important that we have to look at success has recipes. The recipes are there for us to see if we can decipher them. And when we come up with some stuff, we go, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. It's not an opinion. This is what the data is saying. And if you know that, you can tell your training. And that's true for anybody. Even if somebody's listening here off 15 handicap, like a Gameforge and with an aim-point performance, we know what you need to look like to become a 12 handicap from 15 or a 10 handicap or even single figures. And oftentimes it is areas that people just don't realize this is important. For you, as I say, speed will be a huge piece of 2026 and making you much more competitive and efficient in that area.
Yeah, no, whenever I was looking at the Gameforge data, it was interesting because I'm getting a decent number of in positions, like 7.1, I think, per round, which is, it's not quite PGA Tour numbers, but like it's not bad. And I'm converting nowhere near the amount of PGA Tour numbers. Now, albeit some of that probably is a little bit biased, maybe from short game and from par fives, and I'm hitting it to 15 feet where they're hitting it to like 3 if we're both chipping sort of deal. Like there is an element of that, but I do think it is speed control related. Like even, um, you know, so my buddy Ryan Sullivan just qualified for Corn Ferry Tour this past year, and I caddied for him here in town, a mini tour event, and it was amazing to me every single putt that he hit. If it didn't go in, it was between like 1 inch long and a foot, like basically every time, and it didn't, inside of 30 feet. Like it didn't matter inside of 30 feet. Like it was the speed control. It was not short. It was never more than 2 feet. It was very rarely more than a foot, but it was always past the hole. And that to me was like, I just hadn't seen that at the amateur level.
Yeah, that would be an outlier performance, to be very, very honest. That is unusual, but then this is the reason why the guy's ended up in the Corn Ferry Tour, right? Is that he can hole enough birdie putts when he in positions,
Yep.
convert enough of those that he can therefore step up to Corn Ferry level competitiveness. Yeah, it's so like the key. One thing I want to say here that's important is you're a very good green reader. You use aim point. I've been in the golf course with you. Jamie and I would be pretty high level green readers, to be honest about it. And when we kind of watch your execution and what you were coming up with, we're like, this guy does not have any green reading issues. He's highly proficient at green reading. What I love about that, AJ, is it gives you freedom to work in speed.
Yes.
Because you have developed that skill. You don't have to keep developing it. You have it. Now you can just maintain it, obviously in the background, but you have earned the right, because you've learned to read greens correctly. You've earned the right to go off and work in speed, and that's the piece that will come together and really be of value to you.
Yeah, and I think that's been one of the things where my putting has actually gotten a lot more consistent since switching to aim point, is because I have like such a succinct routine now. Like I know there's always the thing of aim point is slow and aim point is this, is that. I've probably had like 5 of my friends tell me I am significantly quicker now than I used to be on aim point, or than I used to be like pre-aim point. Because I check it and you go on the other side and you check it and you come back and they're like, dude, you're like so fast on the greens now and you're putting better. And so it's kind of funny when I see some of the arguments online. Obviously I am biased, but just because it's had a positive impact on my game. But like, it's so funny when I see the arguments online that, oh, aim point is slower and ban it and this and that. And I'm like, dude, if you do it properly and you're trained well, it's actually faster and it's more accurate. Like I can't read putts with my eyes now. Like my friends will almost make fun of me because they're like, hey, what do you think of this putt? And then I'll have to put my feet on it because I can't read it with my eyes. I don't trust my eyes anymore. I trust my feet. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, we have had an interesting couple of years in terms of the press and media and they. I mean, I guess every story needs a villain, right? And for some reason, aim point is different. I get that. But different doesn't mean wrong, and different doesn't mean we're detrimental to the game. I mean, if you look at somebody as proficient as you are executing an aim point read, you will be extremely fast and you will put up to 2/3 less footprints in the putting green as you execute your read.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge, but of course, sometimes people mistake opinions for facts.
Well, and I also think part of the issue with aim pointer is like when your friends are teaching you aim point, you're not getting a certified aim point instructor to teach you. I went to a certified aim point instructor, and then obviously I've been very fortunate to work with you guys. But when it's like, oh yeah, I know aim point, it's kind of like this or kind of like that. Like I even have buddies who have seen me do it, and they try and do their own version of it. And I'm like, dude, go get an aim point lesson. Like know the system, but like I'm not accredited to teach you. Especially not like your buddies who can like go out and teach you. So like that part always kind of makes me laugh a little bit.
Right. I mean, if you have a friend who has a 3D experience in gears or something like that, you don't expect them to teach you how your body should move in 3D.
No.
Right.
Exactly.
There are experts, and I think the bit that's possibly, and this is true in life, not just golf, but the bit that's kind of underappreciated is a real expert will make it look easy because their level and depth of knowledge is so vast that they can deliver it in a way that other people can't. And we get people all the time coming around, Mark and Jamie and I going, and we see stuff on TV and the best tours in the world, and we're like, what is that player doing? We don't know what that is. It's not aim point. Aim point is a system, AJ, aim point is a system, and it works because you adhere to the system because we developed it as Mark came through with it, and then Jamie and I and other instructors got involved. We kept refining until we found what we knew was the single best version or the greatest arenas in the world, which is the PGA Tour, the LPGA Tour, the DP, the Ryder Cup. You can't have points of failure in a system when they're on live TV in those arenas, and therefore everything we do is for a reason. Everything we do is scientifically backed. And if you're listening and you are intrigued, I would strongly recommend you go and see a certified instructor.
Definitely agree. One of the other things I would like to just kind of talk about would be expectations for what the viewers can expect from, sort of our conversations. My general thought would be us kind of getting together once a quarter. I'll be uploading, kind of my Gameforge data. Gameforge is a little bit different in terms of statistics that I think it's really interesting because, strokes gained has taken everything over, and not that it isn't very important, but like the stat of in positions, and that being, how many times per round you're hitting it sort of inside 20 feet, and then how many times you're converting it in sort of all those different positions. I don't know, is there anything really that stands out to you in general Gameforge data from taking high-level amateurs to professionals that really stand out to you that maybe could apply to me, maybe doesn't, but I don't know if there's anything that, off the top of your head that would kind of stick out, maybe that Gameforge can kind of show us.
I think the first piece that to me is critical is when you have sufficient amount of rounds in Gameforge, the player you need to be comparing yourself against is the player you currently are and the player you want to become. And comparing yourself against PGA Tour data when you're not in the PGA Tour can be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Can be really demotivating because you just go, I can't get there. What I like about Gameforge when you look at the next level feature and those elements is it gives you the pathway of you can have the ultimate goal, but you also have what does this need to look like in the next few weeks or the next few months. And therefore, like from training perspective, we never want overwhelm, we never want underwhelm. We don't want to be this is too easy, but we also don't want to do this is impossible. What I love about Gameforge is when it uses your data to tell you where you need to go next, it does always feel achievable. Sitting with players and going through it with them on my laptop, they're going to go, well, I can do that. I'm going, yeah, it'll probably take a little bit more work than you might realize, but you absolutely can. And sometimes like the numbers are almost, for a scratch golfer, there's four numbers, 12, 6, 3, 3, 12 greens in regulation, 6 inside 20, 3 conversions, scramble 3 times. That's what scratch golf looks like on average. Obviously, there are rounds that will be outliers. And you say that and it sounds so simple, right? It's like, yeah, I can do that. But 12 greens in regulation as golf courses get harder. For you who aren't on the PGA Tour or Conference Tour, you're probably looking to get you to 13, 14 greens in regulation and more in positions because we get you to 8 or 9 in positions. And those courses, that might fall back to 7 or 8 on the harder courses.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say on top of all of that is to not keep some form of data is to have no capacity to know how to steer your ship. You just don't know what you need to address. And going to a coach and saying, swing, 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 okay, fine, but what's happening with that swing? Are you hitting 2 fairways or 10 fairways? Don't know. You're hitting any greens in regulation and all that. It doesn't have to be at the level of, obviously, that you guys will go into it at the elite level, but you do and should keep some stats that allow you to plot your journey or assist a coach in plotting your journey for you.
Yeah. So kind of as we're wrapping up here, what would you suggest for me, or really for anyone at home, for sort of daily disciplines, right? Like especially for those who are listening. I have a lot of listeners in Europe, but I also have a lot of listeners here in the Midwest. It's cold right now. What are sort of daily disciplines maybe that viewers at home or myself could implement sort of in this off season as we work on our minds or work on maybe our putting or our chipping or whatever we can sort of indoors?
I think a key question is, what is my current identity as a golfer? And what might I like that to become? Right. So we all have, as I said earlier on, stories that we repeat, and a lot of them are on auto repeat, so we don't quite catch them. So what's my current identity as a golfer? Oh, I always slice, or I always do this, or I'm an 80s shooter, for example. There's a statement of identity. And well, how would you change this?
All right, we're back. A little technical difficulty there. We were just talking about shifting identities. So maybe if you want to talk just a little bit about shifting the identity, and then anything else sort of as winter and off season kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so shifting identity, as this may or may not have been caught in the previous recording, but the concept of I always shoot in the 80s, I always 3-putt, I always do sleeve bunker shots in the bunker. They're statements of identity, but there's a finality to those statements. That's who I am. I'm in this box and I can't change that. So we want to start finding those stories that we're telling ourselves and not creating crazy new stories, right? So if you're always shooting in the 80s, you're not going to become a 60 shooter, not in one season. Okay, fine. But I wonder what it would be like to shoot 78. Okay, just ask that question to yourself. I wonder what it would be like. Now, if you start directing your brain in that manner, I wonder what it would be like. What if I figured out how to shoot 77? The brain will start to look for solutions. In the same way of if you've ever changed car, AJ, and you decide you want a red Corvette, what do you start seeing on the road?
Red Corvettes.
Right, because you're instructing your brain to start seeing them. So when we ask our brain a question, but don't give it the end result as such, just go, I wonder what it would be like to shoot 78, or what if I could figure out how to shoot 77? It will start seeking solutions because the brain hates not having answers. Right, and so that's a very, very nice way of if you've got a few minutes and you can't hit balls, or you're going to hit balls perhaps in a simulator or range, and just start asking yourself questions that would be different to what your current performance levels are, but not outrageously so. We're not going to try and trick ourselves into going, I can shoot 62. You're not going to shoot 62 if you're mid-80s, but what would it be like to play around with no 3-putts? What would it be like to hold 50% more 3-footers? Whatever the case may be. That's a great way to start to shape and encourage your brain to look for different solutions, and as a side effect, start to create different stories that you can begin to lean into. Visualization can be brilliant for those who can visualize. Not everybody can, but that can be helpful in the off season to visualize a capacity to shoot different scores. And again, going back to that idea of season to late 70s, it's important if you're visualizing that you can do so for technique. You can imagine what it would feel like or look like to swing a club in a certain way, a great chipper of the ball, or you can imagine yourself on a golf course shooting a score you haven't shot before. And the key there is again, don't look for perfect visualization, because you're going to encounter stumbling points as you play. So it's okay to, if the ball goes in the trees, visualize yourself dealing with it. You know, the idea that we're going to be able to visualize ourselves into perfect performances, that doesn't exist. But we can visualize ourselves becoming a more tenacious golfer who can overcome challenges and deal with them in a manner in which you haven't done before.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good frame and a really good way to look at it, because I think, you know, a lot of us in the winter will kind of get technical and focus on all those pieces, and it's like no, like let's focus on our mind and let's focus on what we're doing with the brain, because that will actually make the biggest difference. So no, I think that's great. As we're wrapping up here, I just wanted to give you a chance to plug anything you want. I know, what is it, makeeverything.com with Aimpoint, or, you know, if there's anything that you would want to plug, Gameforge, any of those pieces, I'll put links in the description for everybody, but just wanted to give you a second.
Well, the piece that's coming next for me is my first book, so that'll be probably end of January 2020. So we might put a link into that. And
Nice.
Us guys, we're makeeverything.com. We're Aimpoint Performance. We love performance. We love watching players become what they've dreamed of becoming, and we like being part of that journey. So thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for taking the time as always. Thanks, Gareth.